What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back with another box office breakdown for Saturday, December 9th, where something incredibly rare and something incredibly cool is going down at the North American box office, where we have not one, not two, but three really good foreign films, all in the top 10, and I'll be including links, or I will include links to my reviews to all three of these films down in the description below. But I'm talking about The Boy and the Heron, I'm talking about Godzilla -1, and I'm talking about Animal. I don't want to overstate the case about what this means. Ordinarily during December, we get a lot of big, high-profile Hollywood releases, movies like Wonka, movies that can play well to the entire family throughout the entire holiday season. But as somebody who doesn't really give a damn about family-friendly entertainment, or I guess I don't give a damn about most family-friendly entertainment, because a lot of Hayao Miyazaki's films are family-friendly, but his craftsmanship is so superb, and his skill and his talent are of such legendary status that I feel like he could make a movie about any topic and it would manage to, transcend or surpass whatever genre trappings it might be working within. And speaking of which, I'll also be including a link to my Cinema of Hayao Miyazaki video, which I posted last week. At any rate, I went through his entire career from his earliest days as a key animator and that sort of thing on other people's movies, up through his achieving legendary status with his own career. But I absolutely love and adore Hayao Miyazaki. So seeing The Boy and the Heron as the #1 movie of the week in America, it just reminds me not to be quite so cynical and not so bitter and not so mean-spirited about the state of film culture. And as I look back over calendar year 2023, there are so many high-profile failures, movies that cost in excess of $200 million that just completely fell on their face and or underperformed. And it's hard to think of a single example where you're like, you know what, that movie really should have done much better. Or I wish that movie had done much better. Does anybody think that Quantumania should have made more money? Or that Flash should have made more money, or that Dial of Destiny should have made more money? And these movies are terrible. Or the Marvels. I didn't even see the Marvels. Does anybody honestly think that the Marvels should have been a greater success based on the merits of the individual film? And I suspect that as we move into 2024, 2025, we're going to be seeing a lot more movies like Oppenheimer and Barbie, where the budget's like $100 million, maybe $150 million, but I feel like you can still get incredible production value for that amount of money. You don't need to spend $300 million on Dial of Destiny. It's absolutely absurd. Or you can spend like $15 million on Godzilla -1 and have arguably the best event movie or popcorn movie of the year. I think that the whole system in Hollywood needs to be realigned with the tastes and preferences of the movie-going public. And I heard this incredible phrase a couple days ago on the podcast called The Town, hosted by Matthew Bellany. And they used the phrase niche event movie. And I was like, well, niche event movie, that's kind of a contradiction in terms. But what they mean is a movie like Godzilla -1, where the budget's relatively modest, but the movie's designed to appeal to its target audience in the most effective way humanly possible. Don't try to broaden its appeal to general audiences. Don't try and defang it or declaw it or kind of make it more bland or more general. Keep the budgets realistic and make the best goddamn movie you can, where at a minimum your key audience, your target audience, is going to be doing cartwheels as they leave the theater. And I think The Boy and the Heron is another one of those niche event movies. It probably has twice the budget of Godzilla -1. But ordinarily, these Studio Ghibli movies, at least historically, have had budgets around $25-30 million. But I would have to double check to be sure. Hopefully, that'll be in this article. But if the year 2023 is going to be remembered for anything in the world of movies, it's going to be tons of high-profile failures, embarrassing failures, ignominious failures. And I think it's time for a lot of filmmakers to kind of recalibrate what kind of movies they're making and at what scale. And I'm actually kind of frankly very optimistic about the future based on this weekend alone. So let's just dive right into the article, where we have some incredible news for Hayao Miyazaki fans. So Anthony D'Alessandro updated this article about 2 hours ago, but the article is titled Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron growing to 10 million to 12 million opening. Renaissance loses glam with 74% drop. Box office update. And the article begins with G-Kids The Boy and the Heron is the distributor's biggest opening ever, with a 3-day between 10.7 million and 12 million after a 5.56 million Friday/previews. The overall marketplace, though sluggish, isn't as bad as we thought, with around 69 million, which is up 82% from a year ago. Thank God for small miracles. G-Kids' previous 3-day record was Makoto Shinkai's Weathering With You back in 2020, which posted 1.8 million. The Boy and the Heron is standing on high marks with an A- cinema score, 4.5 stars, and a 65% definite recommend. Mostly guys, not all, at 54%, with 80% of those who watched between 18 and 34. And the largest demo being 25 to 34 at 44%. Diversity demos are 43% Caucasian, 22% Latino and Hispanic, 7% Black, and 27% Asian/other. PLF and IMAX are driving 38% of the gross so far. While the West is strong for the Hayao Miyazaki movie, the AMC Boston Commons is the highest grossing cinema in the nation at 39,000. We don't see them often in the lead. There's some other victory laps here for The Boy and the Heron. The movie's opening day easily best the domestic take of Miyazaki's last film, 2013's The Wind Rises, $5.2 million, and will rep the highest opening gross for a Studio Ghibli film. Boy and the Heron is the only entirely foreign production to top the weekend box office this year, and the first since Dragon Ball Super Superhero in August 2022, $21.1 million. The Miyazaki movie is the first original anime not based on existing IP to ever top the weekend box office, and the third anime of any sort to do so after Pokemon the first movie and Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Boy and the Heron is also the first 2D animated feature not based on existing IP to top the weekend box office since 2009's The Princess and the Frog from Disney, $24.2 million wide opening. So let me just pause and savor the moment where we have a Hayao Miyazaki movie as the #1 movie in the North American box office. That is just so goddamn cool, and I guess for me, what it infers is that the audience is ready for and open to a variety of new experiences. The Boy and the Heron, like they said in this article, it's not based on a comic. It's not based on a video game. It's not a remake of a Japanese classic. It's just an original movie. And surprise, surprise, audience members like original movies made by visionary, dynamic filmmakers. And it's obvious in hindsight, but movies have gotten so expensive in America. Once again, these $200 million bloated monstrosities that it makes people incredibly terrified and risk averse. And they're nervous about every creative decision because so much is on the line. Well, then don't spend $200 million on these bloated, forgettable, just idiotic, interchangeable movies. Get back to original filmmaking. And of course, you're going to have to bring the budgets down. And then if the movie does well, then the budgets can go back up for the sequel, the spinoffs, whatever the case might be. You can start the whole cycle of remakes and that sort of thing all over again. And Hayao Miyazaki, what's interesting with him is how a lot of his movies in the past, like Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, are based on his manga. Like, he would test the waters with a cool comic, and if it did well, then yeah, he would spin it off into a movie. And I feel like that's a great way for an artist to test the waters. Like, if you're a director, do a proof of concept, sell a graphic novel on Indiegogo, or do a short film. See if people like your movie. Or one of the best examples, like Michael Mann. He made a made-for-TV movie called LA Takedown. People liked it, and then he basically used the exact same screenplay and expanded it, made Heat about 6 years later. There are ways to kind of reduce your risk or see what kind of level of interest there actually might be out there. But these movies are execution dependent, meaning the style matters, the emotional storytelling matters. If you slap a giant billboard up in Times Square of The Boy and the Heron, no one's going to recognize it. However, I think just from the artistry alone, I think you're going to lure some people in. And I just find it amazing and incredibly inspiring that Hayao Miyazaki, who's flirted with retirement multiple times, is showing the world he's still got it. Even if I don't regard The Boy and the Heron as his best movie, I think in my Hayao Miyazaki kind of ranked video, I ranked it number 8. But for me, all 12 of his movies are 100% worth seeing. All 12 of his movies are classics. I think 3 or 4 of his movies are straight up just animated masterpieces. But if there's room in the North American box office for a Japanese filmmaker like Hayao Miyazaki, I feel like there's room in the North American box office for a whole host of other international filmmakers, as we will be getting to shortly in the rest of this top 10. But first, let's talk about some American filmmaking. Also looking better this AM is the 4th weekend of Lionsgate's The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes with around 9.4 million. And that's all he's got to say about that, and that's fine because I haven't seen it and I don't plan on seeing it. But then he continues with AMC's Renaissance of Film by Beyonce has lost its glam with a 5.6 million 3-day, down negative 74%. Ouch. One could say it was always the destiny for the Queen Bey movie to drop because it's a concert movie and it's front-loaded. However, this is the worst time to release a movie in the pre-Christmas period when moviegoers are distracted with holiday activities. Furthermore, you can't launch 10 polls on social media alone. You need a fire-breathing pummel of TV spots and the whole 360 and talk shows of it all. It's never prudent to approach theatrical quietly. Look at what Warner Brothers is doing with Wonka, which opens next weekend and could explode beyond its projected 40 million. I mean, the movie got a big push on The Tonight Show in a bit between Jimmy Fallon and Anne Hathaway, and she's not even in the movie. She's in Neon's Eileen. The point is, you want your movie to go beyond the scope of any advertisement into the cultural ethos so it can resonate. Wonka opens abroad this weekend with a $30 million projection. But let's get into some indie flicks with Searchlight's Poor Things Isn't Penniless with a robust 69,000 theater average or 623,000 weekend at 9 theaters after a 279,000 Friday. That's shaping up to be the third best opening theater average year to date behind Focus Features' Asteroid City, 142,000, and A24's Beau is Afraid, 80,000. It's also ahead of Amazon MGM adult gothic romance Saltburn, which posted 46,000 from 7 theaters in weekend 1. Yorgos Lanthimos' previous sexy period movie The Favorite, which also starred Emma Stone, posted a $105,600 theater average. However, that was from 4 theaters that opened to $422,000. Rich numbers for Poor Things come from AMC Century City, AMC Burbank, AMC Grove, and New York City's AMC Lincoln Square, Alamo Brooklyn, Regal Union in New York City. A quick interruption, as a New Yorker, I attend all 3 of those theaters regularly. I live about 3 blocks from the Regal Union, but we also have Alamo San Fran, AMC Metreon San Fran, and Alamo South Lamar Austin. The best is Lincoln Square with 52,000 through Friday, followed by Burbank with 41,000. Poor Things and its adult content makes 1988's The Unbearable Lightness of Being look like a Disney princess film. 10 million final domestic gross back then for the kinky Daniel Day-Lewis, Juliette Binoche, Lena Olin movie. Another interruption. Everybody should watch The Unbearable Lightness of Being. It is a very erotic movie. It will be really interesting to see if Poor Things resonates with older art house moviegoers. Anecdotally, the movie has great word of mouth among many awards voters. Now, I saw Poor Things at the New York Film Festival, and I absolutely loved it, and I'll include a link to my review in the description below. But I'll be very curious to see how this movie performs overall, because obviously Emma Stone is a massive star. And Yorgos Lanthimos is an art house star. I mean, The Favorite was, I think it grossed nearly $100 million worldwide, which for Yorgos Lanthimos is a ton. It's like $1 billion for like a Cameron or Spielberg or someone like that. But the movie is intensely erotic. And there are a lot of people out there these days that just have an absolute fucking heart attack the moment someone like reveals a hint of skin. And these trends, obviously, they're cyclical and they come and go. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s where we were just like, had waves upon waves of erotic thrillers, and a lot of them did incredible numbers like Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. And Poor Things is not an erotic thriller, but there was a time where audience members loved eroticism in movies, and I guess coincidentally, it all comes from like a pre-porn era. And it's a weird thing where due to the proliferation of porn online, maybe people want to have kind of a separation of church and state where they want their nudity in one platform and they want their movies to, not have anything to do with it. I don't get that at all. I feel like going back to the earliest days of movies, eroticism and film go hand in hand. Like photographing beautiful people doing, very sexual things is always interesting. And if people don't want to see that, I'm not going to like hold their feet to the fire and say they have to. But there are a lot of people out there these days that seem to want to kind of lead a crusade with their pitchforks and torches and that sort of thing. Like, no nudity in movies, no nudity in shows. It upsets them, it confuses them, it perplexes them. All right, I guess like those people, if they only want to live in a world where you get to see Jurassic World movies and Marvel movies and Transformers movies and that sort of thing, for me, that would be the end of film culture. That's what Martin Scorsese's talking about when he trashes Marvel movies. And it's funny how Martin Scorsese started trashing Marvel movies a couple of years ago, describing them as roller coasters. And he wasn't wrong. He was just early. Everybody was like, how dare you say anything about Marvel? And of course, now everybody's realizing, ugh, most of these Marvel movies and shows kind of suck. Like maybe Martin Scorsese was right. And I feel like, tattoo that on your forehead, make the t-shirt, Martin Scorsese was right. But if you want to live in a world where filmmaking can lure in people who want their imagination stimulated, their intellect stimulated, their assumptions challenged, their ideas challenged, then you need to make room for movies like Poor Things. I'm hoping Poor Things does really well. I'm hoping Emma Stone goes home with an Oscar. I hope that Yorgos Lanthimos gets to make whatever movies he wants moving forward. And the kind of devilish, mischievous side of my personality thinks that movies like Poor Things should exist primarily just to watch people like Grace Randolph have an absolute meltdown on social media. I mean, she went on a tirade talking about how it needed to be rated NC-17 and how she was tricked and all this stuff. I think she went into it thinking it was going to be a movie like Barbie, and what she got was something quite different. She got a full-blown European art film, and she just was not prepared. And so, I find it hilarious watching people having meltdowns, like, banging their shoe on the desk, talking about how, movies are shocking and controversial and that sort of thing. But the world of cinema needs shocking, controversial movies every once in a while. just to kind of stir things up and shake off the cobwebs. But let's get into the official top 10, where we have one more movie, speaking of controversies, that I want to call attention to. So we've already gone over The Boy and the Heron and Hunger Games, but I'm thrilled to see that Godzilla Minus One is hanging in there in the number 3 slot. It's just so goddamn cool seeing a Japanese genre film or a Japanese event movie going toe-to-toe with the rest of the kind of Hollywood output at a time where Hollywood's got their own Godzilla, kind of like their own licensed spin-off franchise going on with Monarch, the show over on Apple TV Plus, and obviously all the MonsterVerse movies. And I see the MonsterVerse movies, but I don't particularly like the MonsterVerse movies. And I keep going back. Kong Skull Island was probably my favorite of the big 4 that they've done so far. They've done 4. They did Godzilla, they did Skull Island, they did Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think that's what it was called. And then they did, I keep wanting to say Donkey Kong. It's not Donkey Kong, it's King Kong. And they did Godzilla versus Kong. And now they've got Godzilla X Kong, whatever the fuck that means, coming out, I think this coming year. But it's funny seeing that trailer drop right after seeing Godzilla Minus One. Like, I would much rather see 2 or 3 movies set in the Godzilla Minus One universe, as long as they can get that filmmaker back. I mean, that writer, director, and special effects artist he really fucking delivered with that movie. But I'll be curious to see if the success of this movie kind of lowers people's, I guess, excitement for the kind of the Hollywood alternative, because there ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. And in more bad news for Disney, Wish continues to plummet. Right now, its total is at $49.5 million. Once upon a time, Disney used to dominate the kind of the Thanksgiving window with movies like Frozen 2, but those days are firmly in the past. And The Marvels is nowhere to be mentioned anywhere in this top 10. It was like a week ago or a couple days ago where Disney announced they're going to no longer be reporting box office figures for that movie. Ordinarily, a Marvel movie could be expected to play to pretty healthy business throughout the holiday season, but yeah, Disney has so many problems that they're wrestling right now with, like, from a corporate level to a creative level to a political level. It's just every day seems to bring just like a fresh tidal wave of bad news for Disney. And they're going to have to make some major changes. To quote my old biology teacher from my sophomore year in high school, who used to say, "Get your head out of your ass." Well, I would offer the exact same advice for Disney. Get your head out of your ass and get your affairs in order, or you're going to get slaughtered by the global competition moving forward. And speaking of global competition, I have to give a shout out to Animal, which is in the number 8 slot with only 622 theaters. I saw it at the Regal Union Square a few blocks away a couple days ago. And I was absolutely floored. I know so little about Bollywood, it would just make your head spin. I think most American audience members know very little about Bollywood, unless they're of Indian descent or Hindi descent. Like, there are obviously people out there who like these movies. And every once in a while, an Indian movie like RRR will punch through. But RRR is not even a Bollywood movie. It's from India, but India has a couple rival film industries all within that country, which makes sense. I think there's 1.3 or 1.4 billion people that live in India. And the good news is a lot of them are rabid movie fanatics. They make a lot more movies than Americans do, and they see a lot more movies. And judging from the comments in my review for the film on YouTube, this movie has stirred up a little bit of controversy as well. I mean, the movie is insanely violent, almost to the point of absurdity, where it's like, I don't understand how anybody could be remotely upset by or disturbed by Animal, because it's almost going into like Looney Tunes terrain in terms of, like, you know, people driving vehicles that are a giant Gatling gun, and the Gatling gun's got Gatling guns on the side and that sort of thing. For me to find a movie disturbing, it has to be much more grounded in reality to actually kind of like tap into those emotions. But I'll say this about Animal, it is so goddamn entertaining, it'll make your head spin. Like, you know, huge epic brawls, all while people are singing and dancing. It's going to sound so comically absurd to a lot of American audience members, but I feel like if you are open to the experience that it offers and you can find a way to get on its wavelength, you will have the best goddamn time for 3.5 hours. And for like the entire evening after I came home, I kept revisiting the trailer over and over again and like looking up the songs from the movie and like looking up past work from some of the stars involved. And luckily, a lot of the people who left comments in my review gave me a ton of recommendations for more movies by that director and more movies with that star. And let me give credit where credit is due. The movie was directed by Sandeep Reddy Vanga. I'll be seeing all of his movies from now on. I definitely plan on going back and watching all of his previous movies as well. And there's an Animal sequel on the way. And the movie also stars Ranbir Kapoor, who's got more star power than you know what to do with. Imagine like a gangster performance by someone like Al Pacino in a movie like Scarface, where like Al Pacino also has the ability to like sing and dance and being a romantic lead. I mean, he has all the ingredients. As my grandfather would say, he packs the gear. And I was just floored by him, and it's just a complete and total powerhouse performance. And apparently he's one of the biggest stars in India, and I totally understand why. So apparently he's got like 10 or 12 years of filmmaking behind him. I plan on going back and watching as many of his major roles as humanly possible. But if you live near a theater, one of the 622 theaters that happens to be playing Animal right now, do yourself a favor and go see this bad boy in the theater. So there we have it. The Boy and the Heron, Godzilla -1, and Animal. 3 kick-ass movies that are not made in Hollywood that are doing just fine on the North American box office, which fills me with optimism, fills me with joy. I just love seeing movies that I enjoy or movies that I admire doing well and finding an audience. Because as one gets older, it's so easy to think like, oh, movies are dead, I'm dead, the country's dead, the world is dead. Everybody gets so morbid and depressed as they get older. But if you look hard enough, then you can find evidence that the world will continue to spin on its axis, and film culture is alive and well if you just know where to look. So thank you so much for sticking with me through this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. But I look forward to reviewing a hell of a lot more movies next week. I've got tickets for 4 movies next week. Oh my goodness, it's almost like, I mean, I love seeing movies, but four new releases in 1 week. Even for me, that's pushing it. But I'll be back in your face in the very near future with some more movie reviews. So thanks again for watching. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.